Hello and welcome to DDOCast, episode 413, recorded live on Sunday, January 10th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Voodoo's, or Gingerspyce. Welcome back.
Hey everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. This week's screenshot, a rune arm takes center stage in the 253rd screenshot of the week. Nice little shot there. Always like the fun ones. A little challenging to figure out where to put the text in there, but really nice shot nonetheless. We'd like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through YouTube, Twitch, the DDO forums, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. Next show will probably be Saturday, January 16th or thereabouts. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or from our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, there's a little bit of game news, mostly some community news. Still kind of in that light news time frame, not just because we're in between updates, but also because we're kind of just after the holidays, like kind of getting back in the swing of things. It's usually kind of quiet around this time, which is totally fine. But the big thing about this week is we're going to kind of talk about the legendary raids, some tips, some tactics, that kind of stuff. Just kind of give you an idea if you're looking to run some of these raids, kind of give you some pointers and what to expect, that kind of thing. So I got Voodoo here, who runs teaching raids on Sarlona a lot, does a lot of raiding as well, as do I. And we kind of kept it a little small this week. Hopefully we'll have a little bit tighter of a show than we've been having. I think last episode was like 2.5 hours.
It was the year end.
Yeah, and it was fun. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was a really long show. So with that, we'll start talking about legendary raids. I thought we'd start with Tempest Spine. And Voodoo, I'm going to pass it off to you. Maybe let's kind of start with what to expect, how you should prepare, that kind of stuff.
Well, I think I said this on the show last week when we were talking briefly about it, but you should expect, if you were around when Tempest Mine came out, or you were a noob years ago and the first time you ran it, you should expect it to feel like that, at least if you're going on Legendary Elite. It is basically the same raid. I can't really think of anything that's mechanically different. You are going to need a very high strength. There's a lever in there, so make sure you have a high strength in your party. On Legendary Elite, it's something like 75 strength. So that's pretty high. I think it's a little bit lower on hard and normal.
I have a confession to make about that. My barbarian couldn't quite hit it.
Oh wow, you admit that.
Yeah, I
Shameful.
Well, so the main reason why is he's still got 2 levels fighter. I haven't taken the capstone yet, and unless I'm on a DC character, I tend not to build for max stats. I'd rather take something that does 1d6 or 1 to 2 1d6 damage as opposed to +1 to strength with my action points. So that's kind of where.
And there's so many people that aren't building for strength anymore because there's so many other ways to do damage. So
on hard, it's only around 60.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, you also need some intelligence. There's some intelligence runes. I don't remember how high those are. I don't have any intelligence tunes. I never get that one.
The only time I don't know what it is, and the only time I wasn't able to do it was because it was late and we started with like 7 people, and no one was playing. Everyone was playing something with intelligence as a dump stat. So I think our high intelligence was like maybe 19.
It's never been an issue for any of them, any of the groups I've been in to get it, so I don't think it's very high. But it's that strength lever that you want to make sure you don't want to get to that lever and be like, oh, what do we do, guys? But don't forget you got like festival cookies, and there's Yugo pots. There's some options to get your stat up temporarily.
There's a set of gloves out of Mind Sunder that's +6 psionic strength.
Yep.
Which
that's the same as the cookie, though.
Yeah, it's the same as the cookie. Also, interesting fact, it's the same type of bonus the Power Surge gives you from a fighter. So just be aware of that. The fighter one's actually a +8, but it's the same bonus.
If you're going in there on
Actually, I think I said insight. I think it's psionic or something like that.
If you're going in on Legendary Elite, expect to get one shot. This is I saw a lot of people complaining on the forums about this, but you know what? Even regular Tempest Spine, you go in there at level on Elite, and you're like on a first life tune or a tune with not. I mean, they throw disintegrates that are hugely powerful. I mean, if you don't have 500 hit points, you can get one shot by disintegrate at level Elite Tempest Spine, heroic. So
I don't really want to get into the debate too much, but I think there's a big difference between getting hit with a disintegrate and failing your save and a drow stabbing you in the chest with a sword.
fair enough.
Just gonna put that out there.
And I guess lastly, don't expect to tank Sorjek at the end. He hits so hard. You just basically have to kite him around, and don't think you're gonna get close to him and swing your sword in his face because he he is ridiculous.
On elite, yeah, even on hard, he'll pack a pretty good wallop. Uh, I think the thing when you get to the Sorjak fight, the thing that I've found to be particularly if you're on legendary elite, the best tactic I've found, at least for myself, is something with range, and just stay away. I mean, it's a small space, and he has a huge cleaving arc.
Oh
Um,
my God, yeah,
but
big
like
time.
if you can see his face, move. And I think kind of the best character to be playing at that point is something that you can focus on him, and still kind of a damage and move around. So I had really good success with my warlock, and my sorcerer because I was able to just kind of focus on him, and as he was moving, I was moving with him. I wasn't really looking at my hotbars. Like my focus was totally on where he was and where he was facing. Um, I will also put this out there because I was really stoked about it. I survived 3 hits on my 3 separate hits on legendary elite on my warlock.
Wow.
Two of them were
Yeah.
on my butt. He knocked me down, and um, I got 2 misses and an incorp. I couldn't believe it. He also tagged me like twice and totally one shotted me, but I was pretty happy that he missed. So some extreme luck. But
Another good thing to bring with you into this raid is if you can bring like scrolls of fire shield, because in the beginning most people just run by the elementals. And if you're doing that on Legendary Elite, they can do a lot of fire damage, and we often see deaths just trying to get inside the complex. So if you have a way to absorb, if you have Firestorm Greaves or something, a way to mitigate fire damage, that's going to be really helpful too.
yeah, a couple places along the raid if you when you're running through it. There's a particular fire trap. Particularly if you're doing on higher difficulties, you may just not want to disable that. Because if you disable it, you get to play with fire elementals, which do a lot of damage. There's a point in the raid where you open a door. There's a shrine behind you, and there's a kind of a fork. You need to go left to get one of the runes towards the beholder and the water area, if you know what I'm talking about. Um, but there can be some red names behind that door. I've only ever seen 2 there, but I think there's actually another one that can be in that same vicinity. So just be aware that the other side of that door can be a pretty big fight as well. So something to kind of keep in mind. Also, to bring invisibility, a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people like to run past the beginning. So that's kind of a good way to do it. And then, let's see, we should maybe talk about getting blown off, because that can happen. And this is not a very linear raid. It's a raid, but really it's essentially a really long quest. And the path to get to the boss is not really straightforward, and you take a lot of detours on the way, so it can be hard to remember where to go and whatnot. If you do get blown off, there's a quicker route than the one that most groups take. Uh, some people have been calling it the back door. It's kind of on the if you go around south of the mountain and come up the east side. There's some ramps that'll let you in. You'll need to get past strength, that one of those strength levers, the same strength as the other ones. It will probably be close. You might need someone to come and help you out with that. But it's a fairly straight and quick shot from that way. Also, freedom of movement. When you get to the puzzle or to the top area, Like the first minute that you're up there, there's a wind control. It can be slippery to move around, and when you're trying to dodge that guy's big sword, it can be helpful to be able to move freely. So something to freedom movement, slippery surfaces, something of that nature will help a lot. And then I'd say the only thing I'd say is for the end fight, don't send your puzzler in first, because Swordjack is going to come and smack him upside the head. If you are a puzzler and you're impatient, wait for someone to go in first. I'm raising my hand right now because this is me all the time. And so send someone in to be bait, let the puzzler do his job, and drop the stones, and then you can start sending more people in. That's kind of the standard way of doing it. You don't necessarily need all the stones to kill him. It's a lot easier to kill him with all of the stones, but you don't necessarily need them. I've heard of groups doing Legendary Elite without getting any of the stones, which is crazy.
We've done that.
It sounds painful.
It wasn't too bad. Wasn't like I thought it was going to be.
He regens if you don't put him in, right?
I think so.
Something like I'm not exactly sure what the 3 stones do for him individually, but it's doable. And my groups have kind of experimented with not going for the inevitable rune and playing with that. So that's a strategy you can use at your own discretion. It's doable. Definitely easier to use all the stones though.
You mentioned the inevitable, and it's also worth saying that's probably the second hardest hitting mob in the raid. He hits really hard, so don't step up to him unless you can take a hit on Legendary Elite.
Good to know. Anything else we want to say about Spine?
No, everything old is new again. That's really the theme of these 3 raids.
I enjoyed it. I gotta say, like,
it was my favorite of the 3 new ones.
I don't know if I'd say it was my favorite, but I do really, I like challenge and all, but there's something to be said about being able to run through this raid on, my groups can do it on Legendary Hard and just cruise through it, and it's kind of fun to have that option. You can do Legendary Elite and slog through it, and it's a challenge and it can be fun. But Legendary Hard is I think for my personal taste just about the right difficulty level. So I can cruise through it. It's fun. It's not really stressful. And it's just a really great group experience, and you can have fun and kind of dink around a little bit.
That's why it was my favorite, because of the group experience.
It's a Tempest Spine still to this day is one of the best raids this game's ever had. I mean, it feels like a quest, but you can do it with 12 people. Though it really brought back memories for me of kind of doing like naked runs or just cruising through it on a low difficulty or whatever on higher powered tunes. Anyways, we're gonna move on to Hound and Xoriat, which was, I think I said in the last episode, is kind of my favorite one, more from the standpoint that it really felt like this one added a lot more just by making it legendary without even really tweaking it very much. You have to go deeper into the raid because the dogs just don't do as much damage. Or Zizzy's got a lot more hit points. So you have to go deeper into the raid and really go through more of the raid's mechanics, which I really enjoyed doing. Having said that, some tips and tricks. First off, you used in Heroic, it was usually reliable that someone could maybe intimidate Zizzy. I have not seen anyone pull that off.
Oh, I do, no problem.
Do you? Okay, what intimidate do you have?
Let's see. On the Druid, I think it's 100. I have 105 Intimidate.
Okay, so that's reachable.
It is pretty high, though.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't see as many Intim tanks running around. Even my quote Intim tank doesn't necessarily specialize in it. But you don't really need Intimidate. Just send someone in first, and she usually aggro's on them. I will say though that the Divine Crusader Aura of Purification will get you aggro, so be aware of that.
It's really handy to have Intimidate. One of the things that I emphasize with my groups is that it's preferable that the tank can grab ZZ's aggro, and that way she's not attacking the puppies. Because if she's attacking the puppies, she's damaging the puppies. But if she's got, the tank has her attention, then she's not damaging the puppies. But they have so many more hit points in Legendary compared to Heroic. In Heroic, they could die, if you blink.
Yeah.
So that's one of the changes I really like is the dogs are a lot more durable.
Yeah, they are the kind of the one complaint I've had, and the thing that'd be nice about having an Intimid tank is you have to be really careful with the placement of the dogs. Uh, they seem to sometimes get into this point where they're just not actually hitting her. They're still attacking, but they're kind of cockeyed and off axis, and they're not actually striking her and doing damage. We had a run where we had like 5 dogs just getting, or 5 charmed dogs, or iterations of charm, just not hitting her at all. Just got off
Weird.
access. We've been having a lot of trouble with that. So you kind of have to be aware of that. And if you have an Intim tank, you can move around a little bit, which can help with that. Um, Having said that, I think that you can have. We've had a lot of success with just kind of sending whoever who can stay alive into the center as kind of the bait and the chew toy. Um, get a decent healer, and they can generally keep them up. I think the more key role in this raid is charming and buffing the dogs. So look for someone, augment summoning, druid past lives. We've actually been talking about someone doing a summoner build to help with this raid. It's not necessary, but just maybe to kind of beef up the dongs a little bit. Particularly if you want to do this on Elite, that could be really handy. But the Primal Avatar Destiny is a great one to be in for this. Druids have some spells that apply to their charms and summons, which can be great to add some of that stuff. That you only get those bonuses if you're the one who does the charming. If you have those and you do the charming. Bards are great to have because they can do a lot of buffing, but they don't. You don't need to charm to give those buffs either. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind with that. Anything you like to look for when you're looking at charming the dongs and that kind of mechanic?
If you're new to charming them, make sure when you do it, the way well, first off, the charming of the dogs, if you're not familiar with the raid, it's a mechanism that's unique to the raid. You grab these control stones from sort of the outside, and then you put them in your hotbar, you target the little puppies, and you click on the stone on your hotbar, and that's how you charm them. So it's not a charm spell. It's a unique mechanic to the raid, and it's just timed. They can't make a save against it. It's automatic. Make sure you're facing them though, because things are moving around in the center, and if you're new to it, it's really easy to screw up the stone because you weren't facing them. You weren't, looking straight at them. Make sure you put a little distance between you and the puppies when you're charming
I
them.
think that's the key. I think is really step back, make sure they're in front of you, and if someone's kiting them and they're doing big laps or something like that, tell them, hey,
Oh yeah,
stand still.
it's not going to work.
Stop moving for 5 seconds while I cast this charm.
And it's really important to know that this is a unique mechanic to the raid, and I'm emphasizing that because sometimes you'll hear people say, "Oh, don't put GH on them because it'll, they'll make their save or something." That's not true at all. They cannot save against the stone. They do not make a save periodically like a mob would normally do with a regular charm spell. Like I said, it's unique to the raid. It's just timed, and you can examine the dog. If you're the charmer, you should have like an examination window on the puppies once they're charmed, so you can watch that timer tick down so that you can be ready for when it expires, so that you can recharm them. Some other spells that you ought to have are like Bear's Endurance and Bull's Strength are nice, especially Bull's Strength. Bear's Endurance probably not as big of a deal because they do have so many more hit points than Heroic, but it's nice to have if you have it. And also, I haven't been able to get this to work consistently, so I'm not really sure what's up, but the Druid spell Pact Strength uh, works on them. At least sometimes for me. It's really weird. Like sometimes
If
it'll
the
show up and
druid's the
sometimes it
one
won't.
who does the charming,
Oh, that's it. Okay, now that makes sense.
the
'Cause
druid
sometimes
spells
yeah.
work, and so there's an ability.
It's funny.
So I don't know. I test this, and we kind of came to the conclusion that we don't think it's actually applying that much extra damage. But there's a druid ability, or sorry, a primal avatar ability that adds like 10d20 electric and sonic damage, maybe on Vorpals or something. I'm not really familiar with it because I don't use it very often. But I tried it. We didn't really find that it seemed to add damage. Like she seemed to be immune to that effect, anyways.
Hmm.
But all of that stuff, like if the description says your charms or summons, it means you that character must do the charming,
Yep.
and for it to work. That's what I
Totally
said.
makes sense.
Druids have some advantages for the charming aspects here, whereas like I see a lot of groups use bards, because, and we'll kind of talk about this tactic in a minute. The bard's probably going to come in and buff anyway, so having them inside, they're going to be inside anyways. But their buffs don't need to, like, you don't need to be the charmer to apply songs. One buff we didn't mention yet, haste.
Yes.
There, I mean, in this day and age, it's really hard to put together a 12-person group and not have haste in general. But I still see a lot of groups not hasting the dogs,
Yep.
and that's a big boost to DPS.
It's very important.
So get the haste on them. You don't need to camp in there and to cast the haste, but come through the center and cast haste on those dogs every 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
I don't think they take a rage though.
I do not believe so. No.
Another good thing
They might. I don't
to
remember.
consider is most people don't take this, but if you have it, Harper leadership from the Harper tree, that's +4 to all stats. But I think you would have to do you have to do the summon.
You have to do the summoning. So
Yep.
it's just kind of the way that those things. If it says your charms, that you got to be the one that's doing them. There are some items that have augment summoning on them if you don't want to take the feat, which is totally understandable because it's not really that great of a feat. But you can. There's some places where you can get that. I think the Epic Roderick's wand has it. I think there's a necklace that has it.
Say the necklace. Don't say that because that's exactly where I was gonna go. Do not wear the necklace. The necklace of Mystic Eidolons in there, under no circumstances, and it's gonna be real tempting because it's got augment summoning on it. Here's the problem with that necklace. Those stupid shadows can attack the dogs even when they're charmed, and they do lots of damage to the dogs. I guess because of the sneak attack or something. So do not wear your necklaces in there. Those shadows just ruin it.
I don't like that necklace for raids just in general because I don't like extra things running around that aren't really controllable. I've also found that, and this is debatable and controversial even on people that I run with, and they give me crap for this all the time, but I found those things to just be lag magnets. They don't always cause lag, but I've seen several times where the whole instance suddenly lag locks. It's been fine. You don't know what's going on. You hear that sound, and then you see it die. No more lag.
I mean, it's definitely the case that those shadows just screw up too many things. Whether they're grabbing aggro at the wrong time, they're breaking phylacteries, as you're prepping the Deathworm fight, they're attacking the dogs in Hound of Xoriat.
Summons are never a good idea in raids.
Trying to get all my
guildies
to get rid of that necklace and just replace it with Lion's Mane. If you just have that necklace for +4 Insightful Con, get a Lion's Mane, get an Epic Vim and Vigor. There are other necklaces now that have that on it.
I'm gonna get so much flack with some amongst my friends. Seriously, people join my raids, and I generally have a strict no Eidolon necklace policy. And the first thing they do is they start linking this necklace, right, left.
But you were right. Epic Roderick's wand has augment summoning on it. You have to keep it equipped though for that to apply. I do use that on my druid when I'm summoning or when I'm charming.
So that pretty much covers. So the last thing I want to talk about was charming. My groups generally, and my preferred way to do it is we charm 2 by 2. So there's 3 dogs you can charm. We grab the first 4 stones, or usually have whoever's going to charm grab the first 2 stones, come in, charm 2, we kite or kill the other one. Usually you're probably going to have to kill it. I found that usually the third, at least one of the dogs is on the outside anyways to start. But you need to make sure that you get that thing. You want to make sure that your 2 dogs are attacking Zizzy, not anything else. Get them attacking Zizzy. That's the goal, because that's really what this raid is about. Is that, which is why it's a really fun raid. And it scales really well. But having said that, we generally do 2 dogs at a time. The reason I like doing that is you're going to get 4 keepers, which is what they're mind flayers. They drop the control stones. You get 4 of them pretty much right off the bat. And then you don't get more, they don't start spawning again until basically just under the timer of 2 charms. So I think that the charms last for, I want to say 3 minutes, 2.5 to 3 minutes, somewhere in there. So your next set of keepers isn't really going to spawn till about 6 or 7 minutes into the raid. So about the time you charm once, they break, you charm again. With about 30 seconds left, you're going to start getting more keepers. That's generally where it kind of pans out. The reason why I like to do 2 and 2 is because if you do 3 right off the top, they all start attacking Zizzy. Then they start breaking. You charm 1, but you still got 2 of them running around. Which then they start attacking the other dog or attacking you. And it just seems to always be cleaner if it's 2. You charm 2, get a third, kite the third one, keep them out of the way, kill it, whatever you need to do to make it a non-factor. Kiting would be preferable because when you start getting more stones, you can come in and charm the extra dog. But keep it away. Then you got 2 dogs working on her. They break. You charm them again. They're both back on her. It's just cleaner. That's what I found. What strategy do you guys tend to use?
Exactly the same, and we do that. We do 2 and 2. It's mechanically basically identical to the original Hound of Xoriat. So if you know the old one, you know the new one. It's the same. Earlier Patrick said about how you go deeper into the raid. That was not necessarily true. It can often be true, but we have found that if we have good buffs on those dogs, we can do it in 2 rounds of charming. So then it's the same. Because that's, for normal Hound of Xoriat, that's what it takes. It's 2 rounds of charming. So if you got good buffs, it makes a big difference. And a little tip for the tank, when you go into the center, try your best to grab the puppy's aggro right away, ZZs and the little dogs. And they tend to just want to run out right away, so it could be a little tricky. But here's the thing. Because they have so many hit points now, you can totally afford to throw a throwing weapon or hit them with a spell. I mean, I'll throw a Call Lightning if I'm my Druid. I mean, it takes a pixel off of them. Because they have so many hit points, they can take that damage no problem. You can range them back. They come right back to you instead of running to the outer circle. So don't be afraid to hit them.
I will say, though, that one of my guys in my guild, he's a great person to send in to be bait. Other than the fact that he's a warlock and his art, by the time you get in to charm the dogs are half dead. My only complaint about him being the bait. He does a great job, and it's not that hard to get around. It means you kind of got to make sure that you have a little bit of healing on the dogs, but
he's got to turn his aura off. That's why.
That's what keeps him alive. That's part of it. But yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go.
Find yourself a new tank.
It's not hard to get around. It's something like the dogs have so many more hit points.
Yeah.
I don't find. I mean, it takes a lot to fill them up. But the nice thing about that is you can throw a beefy healer in there, and it'll forgive a lot of sins in that because you don't have to pay really close attention to them. You just kind of oh hey, they're at half, throw a mass heal on them, throw another mass heal on them, throw another mass heal on them. Okay, now they're at about 5/8.
Half-dead puppies are not an emergency in
exactly.
Legendary Hound. And in regular Hound, it is, but here, totally not.
No. This Legendary Hound of Xoriat is really about 2 things. The first we've been talking about is get the dogs charmed, get them honor, get them buffed. That's kind of that's going to be the determining factor on how long the raid takes. Is how good can you buff and charm and keep them on those dogs. The second thing is your trash.
Trash mitigation.
Yeah. And the way this raid is organized, if you think of a square and then a circle in the center of the square with paths north, south, east, and west. That's kind of the general layout of the raid. And if I would have thought ahead, I would have brought a map. I didn't. But it's pretty easy to figure out. There's portals at the corners and straight off the centers of the sides. So there's 8 portals. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, 8 portals that trash can come out of. The keepers only spawn out of the corners. The flesh renders, they hit hard. You don't want them in the center because they'll take aggro. They'll take the dog's aggro off of Zizzy or kill the dogs. Neither of which is desirable. You want the dogs on Zizzy the whole time, but they're not. You kill them. If you keep killing them, you don't get overwhelmed. It's usually not a big deal. But they're not really what I would call the higher priority mobs. Be careful. They do hit hard, particularly on Legendary Elite. So be aware of that. There's the Keepers, which are Mind Flayers. They're red names. Those are the ones that drop the stones. So you want to rally to those. Get some help. Have some friends there. You want the control stones to get them into the center. I would say kind of in the first circuit that you're going to do and kill the 4 keepers, you're probably going to have people assigned to pick up the stones. After that, there's probably going to be someone who's going to be designated the charmer. If that's not you and you see a stone on the ground, pick that thing up, take it to the charmer. I've seen stones, like I've been running around and like, keeper's dead, okay, and then I'm like in this side of the map, I run around, there's still a stone on the ground. Pick it up, take it to the charmer. It's not doing anyone any good on the ground. So do that. But the big thing you need to watch out for are the beholders. Why the beholders are important is if they get to the center, they dispel the charm. And this raid is all about keeping those dogs on Zizzy. So if they get dispelled, they're not attacking Zizzy anymore. That's bad. Beholders are also pretty beefy and can do a lot of damage with their spells anyways. So it's something to kind of manage. What's your guys' strategy for dealing with trash and how you organize that part of the raid?
Well, there's 2 basic strategies for trash mitigation. You have your H method and your O method. Is that what you're getting at? And you want to discuss the differences between those 2 methods? Or is it getting too technical?
We never call them that, but no, please do.
Okay. So there's the 2 common methods are called the H method and O method. The H method is also called the collapse method, and the O method is also called the circle method. And both of these methods are just, like I said, designed to mitigate trash. So the circle or O method is you're more newbie friendly. You know, it's really, if you're in a pug, it takes less explanation. It takes less. It's certainly less complicated. Not that the H method is complicated, but it's basically, you know, you have 1 or 2 groups running a big circle around the outer ring. Like Patrick said, it's like it's sort of like a plus sign inscribed in a circle or a square, and so your group just runs around the outside killing trash as they meet it. And sometimes you have like groups, you know, 2 groups, and they're running opposite ways, so they're sort of dragging trash to each other. The problem with that is that, you know, as mobs are spawning from these portals, depending on, you know, where the group is when they spawn, they can just sort of run right by the group and run into the center. And when trash gets in the center, it starts screwing things up. You really want to do your best to keep trash out of the center, because the way that it screws things up is, 1, like Patrick said, if a beholder gets in there, the anti-magic dispels the charm on the dogs, and that's really bad. You know, those are from the stones. You have a limited amount, and you know, you start with 4, so if they get dispelled, then that just makes things take a lot longer. The other problem is that, you know, if anything gets in there, it can start distracting the dogs, pulling the dogs' aggro off of ZZ and onto the trash mobs, so that they're no longer damaging ZZ, and that's also bad. Or they're just doing damage to the dogs, which could potentially kill them. So the circle method is about dealing with all that trash on the outside. Now, I much prefer the H method. I learned the circle method when I was a noob. And then when I joined a pug one time and this dude did the H method, I was like, I have to learn this. This is awesome. Because when it's done right, you have to deal with so much less trash than the circle method. So the way that it works is you basically, you get your outer control stones, and then everybody goes to the center and just takes positions like 2 people at each hall, like facing out, but you're only like a third of the way out from the center, and the idea is that you're so far in that you don't even attract the attention of the mobs that are running around the outside. So you'll be standing there watching the trash mobs just run by you. You don't even have to deal with them. So from that standpoint, you're just dealing with a lot. You don't have to deal with the trash, you know. But if it does happen to come in, you want to run out to meet it, especially if it's a beholder. Under no circumstances should you be letting trash in the center, and it's critical that you do not let beholders in the center. Do not drag them in the center. Run out to meet them, then retake your position. And you know, if you're a range tune, do not you know, range something from across the center, because you can potentially pull the trash right through the tank and ZZ and screw things up there, pulling the dogs off of ZZ or whatever. So make sure you're going around and ranging at closer range.
I think the thing to know about the H method, or what you're calling the H method, is if you're going to need more than 4 stones, it can come back to bite you, because it makes getting those stones a little harder, because you end up with more trash running around.
It's true.
It's something to keep in mind if you're going to use it. I have personally found that it's a great method, and I kind of prefer something closer to what you call the old method of kind of having people out there, because you keep the trash. If you kill the trash as it's spawning, it never gets out of hand. That's kind of the thing. The way that we've generally been running it is we have kind of melee-ish types kind of go to the north side, and ranges and caster types go to the south side. The reason for that is the south is a little bit. I think that's where the longer path is, or some. I didn't really kind of come up with the method. I just north south makes it easy. You don't have to worry too much about it. What I like to have happen is the problem with the O method, and we kind of describe with the O method, is you tend to clump up, which means you have, for moments of time, even if you have two parties running in circles, they're going to cross each other, and for that moment of time, you've got everybody on one side of the map and no one on the other side of the map. So stuff can spawn on the other side of you and cause problems. What we've been finding that works pretty well is you get people to kind of spread out on the outside. When you find something, particularly a keeper and a beholder, those are the two that you really got to be on the ball with and say, hey, there's one here. You rally to it. And just because it's football weekend, I'm going to call this the football method. Let me see if I can get this going. Because you rally to the ball, right? Come on. I've got football on the brain because I just watched the Seahawks-Vikings game, and it was crazy. But so, a beholder spawns. Someone, you're spread out. Someone sees it. Hey, there's a beholder in the northwest corner. People rally to that. You kill it, and then you spread back out. And the thing that's kind of nice about this is you keep the trash down. It never gets out of hand if you're on top of things. And it's a little more exciting, too, I think, killing trash than just, waiting for something to maybe come to the center. I find that a little more exciting, but it's not to say that the other method isn't bad. It's just a different kind of thought process. One is less work, but a little bit more of a risk. One is more work, but a little safer in the long run, if you go to the long run. The thing to know about the beholders is they're orange names, so you can crowd control them. You can't insta-kill them, but you can crowd control them. If you have one coming to the center, the big thing I want to stress here is turn it around. Don't just run up to it and start attacking it. Turn it around. Go to the backside. Get him to turn that anti-magic eye to the outside. Particularly if it's getting close to the center, you want it facing towards the outside. The same can kind of be true of any of the trash. But you get that rally to it. It seems to, you take care of it and you kind of move on. That's kind of how I've found to really kind of favor that is spread out. When you find something, have people come help you. I'm also going to say that mention that the first person to the mob, you're not as concerned about killing it. If you can kill it by yourself, great. The more important thing, get the aggro, keep it outside. Let your friends rally to you and help you get it, right? Just like football. First guy there, stop him. People come, help you tackle him. I'm calling it the football method. I don't know if it's going to catch, but I'm going to go for it. Just for kicks. That's how I like to organize that aspect of it. Don't forget to buff the dogs. Buffs wear off. We should also mention Divine Crusader, Consecrate Ground, is a great buff to throw. You have to throw it a lot, but it does healing, and I think it gives like a +1 or +0.5 to weapon if you've got it all the way stacked up. It gives extra damage if you take all three parts to it. Another buff that we didn't mention for the dogs. Anything else you want to mention about Hound before we move to Shroud?
The dogs don't take any kind of weapon buffs, like deadly weapons or fires of purity.
I don't know. It heals them at least. So whether or not it's doing extra, it's hard to. I find it hard to really kind of.
I'm letting folks know not to try to buff them with that because they just don't accept certain buffs.
If you want to know what they do or don't accept, examine them. It will show you what they're getting buffed with. I don't know that Consecrate Ground actually gives a buff icon though. If you're in it, I don't think it does.
No, I don't think so.
In any case, it's at least a nice way to heal them. Like, it keeps some healing going. But my groups generally keep a Charmer in the center. Maybe one or two people hang out in the center that are kind of buff happy. I would say if you're gonna have people running around the outside, I personally like the idea of having a tanky type or someone inside. If something comes in, they're that last line of defense. Here it comes. I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna pull it away from the dogs. Just because if you don't have someone that can do that, the stuff's gonna get on the dogs and it kind of mess things up. And it's all about keeping those dogs on Zizzy and strong and happy and hardy. That's kind of the goal. So let's talk about Shroud, Legendary Shroud, which is, for the first 4 parts, a lot like what you would expect from the original Shroud, which I'll say it again. I was surprised how much I didn't enjoy that. Not to say that I don't enjoy it. I still enjoy running the Shroud. I was just surprised at how much I wanted things to be a little different. And like they gave me pretty much exactly what I would have asked for if you'd asked me what I wanted Legendary Shroud to look like. I'm just surprised that I wanted more. Any case, I figured we could break this down to the 5 parts and talk about them individually. So let's start with part 1. I know every server has kind of their path for the portals. Use whatever you use. I haven't noticed it to be a big deal. You're probably going to get some portal keepers, so make sure that you have people go deal with them. Watch out for the curses. I'm really lazy about the curses because they only last like 20 seconds. I'm always dying in the first part, so I'm like, it's going to go away in 10 seconds. Oh, geez, something hit me for 500 damage. Oh, geez, I'm dead. That's the problem I have in part 1, more than anything else. As long as you have a couple people on trash, try and keep as much damage on the portals as you can. It used to be that people would split up a little bit and kind of maybe leapfrog, or I know Kyber had like the speed method where you had 2 groups that had a separate pathing for the portals to kind of mitigate how much you were running. I would say keep most of your DPS in the same portal just to get it out of the way. There's a couple reasons. One is it gets out of the way, you get fewer portal keepers. The other part is if you get one down, if you got 2 groups working on 2 different portals, you kill one, that group runs over the other group, and they're being lazy like I am, and have their curses on and just took that big burst damage. They get to the other one, right as it blows up in their face, and you take more damage and you get recursed. Not really ideal, and it'll kill a few folks. But that's just stuff to be aware of. Do you have anything that you like to do for part 1?
Just, with all of these raids, just treat them like, it was 2009 and you're not massively overpowered anymore. We're doing, we're keeping the portal crews together here. We're having a couple of people, self-sufficient people, deal with trash out ahead of time, dealing with portal keepers, and don't think you're just going to go in there and power it like you were with Heroic Shroud because you were 10 over level or whatever. Like you have to have a plan because you can fail in part 1 if the portal keeper hangs out for, I think it's just 1 minute. If they're in the zone for 1 minute, you're going to auto fail it. So, make sure you're dealing with that.
I will say, as a leader, one thing I liked doing in the Shroud is turn the DM text on in your chat room, in your chat window, because then you can see when a portal keeper pops up. It'll put a little text there, so you don't miss it. You don't not hear. You don't, because sometimes I'd be kind of like maybe half watching a movie or something during the portals. So if you have the DM text on, you can see that it's there. I usually assign 2 or 3 people. Hey, if a portal keeper pops up, go kill it. That way, 10 people don't go running off to find the portal keeper. And you'll probably know where it is. If you know which portal, kind of the portal pathing, you know where the portals have been up the longest. It's kind of where you're gonna check. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's. If you're halfway organized and you've got decent DPS, you might be in this part for a while. It's not stressful.
It's definitely the longest part.
You
don't think so?
You can debate that with part 2, depending on how organized you are in part 2.
Yeah, we're gonna debate that.
Depends on how well you're organized. Anyways, so it's. I'll tell you this though, it's gonna feel like the longest for sure. It's kind of lacking a little bit in excitement.
It's very boring.
It can
be painful.
I I would have liked to have seen this. Like, it's exactly what I expected. Surprised I would have liked a little more. I think if instead of the portals just blowing up when they die, if they did the new invasion thing in the boss fight, where if you stand on the ground, a portal opens up underneath it and then goes boom. I think if you had that and then like halved the hit points of the portals, it could be kind of interesting. It would favor ranged characters a little too much, though. That's kind of the problem. Not that it doesn't already, but
Make sure you bring a portal beater with you.
yeah. And I would say if you're a Healy type or someone who doesn't necessarily engage in a lot of melee, find a portal beater. Find something with Construct Bane on it. Do a little damage. Healing is important in this part still, and you're probably going to have a few people die because they're going to be lazy with the curses. But, get in there, swing a dinky weapon that does a little bit of damage. At least look like you're contributing. You'll probably do a little more than you think, but it helps. Part 2. Why don't you take this one? What do you guys like to do for part 2?
I think the standard method is to just everybody runs due south and then over to the south central, and it's really important to not run through the center or the maze. This part is Pac-Man. If you never realized that basically every part of Shroud is modeled after a classic video game, which I think is really, really neat. So this part is, it's Pac-Man, there's a maze. And in the middle, you got the monsters. But there's a lot of trash. So take it to the due south, over to the center, kill all the trash, then aggro the guys in the center, just like old school Shroud. You don't want to aggro them right away because you can get overwhelmed. Set up your crowd control, south central, that's your rallying point. Then you go get your bosses just like regular Shroud, and they do have a lot more hit points. We haven't found that this really takes. It's definitely for us. It's never taken anywhere near as long as part 1, and we deal with this just like old school part 2. It takes longer to beat them down. The biggest difference for this part is that your crystal has a lot of hit points. So I'm sending 4 or 5 guys up there, and once you prep your mobs, you don't need a whole bunch of DPS just to do that last few hit points of damage. You just need to be able to split them up and then hit that, hit them with the last whack. But you need a lot of guys up there on that crystal to take it down. I did just learn though that at least as of right now, possibly subject to change, if you're a Fiend Pack Warlock, you can use a Hurl Through Hell on the crystal. It does work on constructs. We know that's working as intended. Whether or not it should be working on the crystal in the Shroud, well, I don't know. But it's working now, so you can one-shot it.
You can probably Prismatic Ray it too, but there's a little bit less of a sure shot on that.
Yeah, that's some randomness going on there.
I would say that. Go ahead.
Well, when you're beating down, when you're prepping the bosses, they can't die unless they're split apart. So don't be afraid to keep whacking them and whacking them and whacking them, and you're not going to kill them. But if you don't take the crystal down in the first iteration, you have to bring the bosses back down. They can die when they're together. So that's something to be really aware of, because otherwise this part can it can be incompletable. You can just keep going and going and going and keep killing these mobs over and over if people aren't paying attention and following instructions.
Yeah, I use the south method a lot. I'm conflicted on this because I don't really like the method of just bringing to the south. It's a little. There's some things about it that are easier in today's game, though, in terms of like area effect damage, especially with warlocks and their auras. And a lot of people have auras and area damage now, so it simplifies things. If you've got everything down in the south, they can't die. You can bring them into the negatives, and once you get them apart, it takes like one shot, and they're dead. So you can get more people to the center, which can be more critical now. The thing about some kind of things to watch out for when you use this method, that if you control them are less of an issue. One is sometimes you end up with someone who's just tends to get all the aggro. Maybe they got the aggro of 3 of them, and it can be harder to separate them, which can be problematic. If that does happen, try and form a wall. Let one guy through and form a wall and stop the other 2 and let them get them farther away. The other thing, and this drives me nuts, is that, okay, they're dead, separate them. The person with the cat goes towards the center.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got the cat or the fire elemental, go to the west. Go away from the center.
Yep.
not towards the center. So, and the reason why I don't really like the south method is because people tend to be really lazy about it, which is kind of a pet peeve of mine when you're talking about raid strategy is being lazy and stuff like that. You know, figure out which direction you're gonna take the fast stuff. Take it away from the center of the crystal. Some of the stuff's slow and it doesn't really matter. But just maybe keep that in mind. What I like to do is take two of them to the west, take one into the southeast corner, and keep one in the center, the south center if you can. With the slowest one ideally being south center and southeast, and the faster ones going west. Doesn't always work out that way. It can be a little tricky. If you've got really great coordination, separating them out into into a couple different, like 2 areas, and prepping them without killing them is what I would say is the best strategy. But it's really hard to do, particularly if you've got a lot of Warlock Auras and other area of effect stuff going on. So the South method is not the cleanest, but it's the easiest to coordinate. It's kind of what you have to balance there. So just kind of some stuff I like to keep in mind there. The one thing I thought of that would have made this a lot more interesting is if the crystal shot back, like the crystal in like the thing in Fall of Truth. If they just stuck that in there, that would have been. I would have loved to have been there for the first time. Like someone goes, "All right, I'm at the crystal." Shield comes down, boom, they're dead. It shoots back. Oh my gosh. There is a little more trash around at the center, so be aware of that too. And don't drag stuff to the center. See that happen a lot. So things to be aware of, traps that'll. I mean, this is the part that a pug can really hose you if someone's just not on the same page as everybody else, or you get in that situation. We had a struggle where we got one down, and then the other 3 just would not separate because everything was on the same guy. We couldn't get it off them. So just kind of be aware that those are some traps you're gonna have to be on the lookout for. Part 3, it's exactly the same. The only difference is the wall comes up a lot faster.
It comes up right away. Right away?
Not quite right away, but it comes up really fast.
I swear it's up right away, but yeah,
well,
if it's not right away, it's uber fast.
The biggest thing about this is, one, the wall always, at least as far as I've noticed, always starts southwest. So if you don't know the circle or a 3x3 and you're in the southwest, get some help fast or just get ready to die. There's some solvers online. I'll try to remember to link to my personal favorite one, the method that I use, which is basically to work top down. You either solve it, or the bottom has a series of combinations that tells you what to hit on the top. And the link that I'll share, gives you the combinations. Key point with that, they're reciprocal. It may look like you need to memorize 9 or so combinations for a 5x5. They're reciprocal. You only need to remember like 5 of them. So just keep that in mind. The circle, the way to solve the circle really fast, it's actually a lot easier than most people think. Start at some point. If there's a light, find a light that's off. Step on the one, either left or right of it. It doesn't matter to turn that light on. Follow the same pattern all the way around, so that you just go in a circle, literally go in the circle, and turn them all on one by one. You'll end up with one of 2 scenarios. 1, you'll have 1 light on, or 2, you'll have 2 lights on. If you have 2 lights on, step on 2 lights off. Sorry, 2 are still off. Step on either one. It doesn't matter. You'll then only have 1 that's turned off. So now we're at the same point as if you just only had 1 turned off. Step on that one. It'll turn off the ones on either side. Pick a direction, follow it back around the circle. It'll solve. That's how you solve a circle. Did that make sense, or did I make that too confusing?
Yeah, that's the first part is the same way I do that one, but then the second part of it, I sort of do a little bit differently. I'm gonna try that though.
If you go in a circle, light them in a circle, it's either going to be 2 off or 1 off. If it's 2 off, step on either one, it becomes the 1 off. Step on the 1 off, you get the 2 off on either side. Follow it in a circle, it'll solve every time.
But don't be that guy in Shroud that's like, I don't know how to do my puzzle, I need some help. Like, Learn how to do it. Learn how to do it without a solver. If you spend 20 minutes on the tutorial, you'll figure it out. But if you can't or you're too lazy, at least bookmark a solver so that you can enter it in. It'll tell you which lights to step on and do it yourself.
My Shroud rule is you either do one puzzle and run one water, or if you can't do a puzzle, you run 3 waters. And I know
he's counting, folks.
And I know the math doesn't work right. I don't care. Run 3 waters. That's the expectation. So, unless you're my guild leader, then you need to run 4. In any case, the biggest thing to know about this is don't hit the altar at the end of part 2 until you're ready to go in, because that's what starts the wall timer. If you wait till you're ready to go in to hit that, then it shouldn't be as big of a deal. You can unlock doors still. The crystals do have more hit points, so be aware of that. Even if you're just throwing a dinky thrower when you get to the south, get that dinky thrower out and start working on it. I haven't yet seen a group that had to abandon the south and go all the way around the circle with the wall coming, but I'm sure it'll happen eventually. So, get down there and start working on that. Part 4. It's the same. I'm a little surprised that even on hard, we've been one-rounding Harry. No problem. I will say, in my 3 was actually, perfect as far as what I would expect for a Legendary Shroud. It's great, no problems. 4, I wish they would have spawned the Gnolls in the first round. If you do get to a round of Gnolls, in the old days, what used to happen is people would really spread out and just kill the Gnolls really fast. The Gnolls have a lot more hit points now. So this is the method that I devised because we got a little bit of lag a couple times, and we didn't get it done in one round. Everybody starts south. I'll say it again because it seemed to be really confusing the first time I did this. Everybody starts south. Kill the south 2 Gnolls. The idea here is you want to get Gnolls down as fast as possible because the longer they're up, the more healing they do. So concentrate your DPS. Kill the south 2. Move to the west. Kill the west 2. Everyone gets back on Harry. I know. I just left 4 Gnolls up. Oh my gosh. Crazy. I know. It worked. We were able to... Now, granted, I run up some people that can put out some decent DPS. So by killing half the Gnolls, you have the healing, and you get in there. It's not enough time to really go all the way around the circle and kill everything. It's limiting the healing and kind of splitting the difference. If you can insta-kill the east or the north Gnolls. That was kind of how I did it. And it worked great. We got back in. We weren't, he was getting a little bit of healing, but our DPS was able to significantly outpace 2 pairs of Gnolls healing him. Have you had to do anything with the Gnolls or come up with any strategies that you like for that?
We've only been doing Legendary Hard, and we've only had to deal with the Gnolls once or twice, and the latest time, Harry was so far down, we just skipped him.
Yeah, if he's down far enough, no problem. But we had one where the lag was pretty brutal. The start to finish the raid, we were kind of fighting the lag. We actually left 2 people dead in part 1 to try and mitigate the lag, which actually worked pretty well. We
One
had
important
the 4th part, and we just couldn't get him down. He was at half health by the end of the first round, and we're looking at this this party should own him. So we had to kind of figure out the Gnolls a little bit at that point, but that's what I found worked.
One important difference between old Shroud and new Shroud. In part 4, you can raise people when they die. They don't get sent to part 5.
Which is really nice. Pretty brutal if it didn't. But yeah, if you do get Gnolls, I think the thing that's going to throw people off the most is in Heroic, the Gnolls have so few hit points, you can smoke them really fast. Everyone spreads out and kills all the Gnolls before they even start. You can't do that on a Legendary Hard, at least. Maybe on Legendary Normal. Certainly not on Legendary Elite. They do have spell resistance, too, which I was a little bit shocked at. I saw some spell resistance shields going up. But concentrate all your DPS on some of the Gnolls and get them down as fast as you can. Don't spread your DPS out and try to bring all 4 of them down at the same time. By the time you do that, he'll run out of time and he'll get too much healing. That brings us to part 5. What's kind of your strategy with part 5?
We don't really have a strategy. You got waves of, you got first you got the four mini bosses, and you just deal with them. We don't, like I said, we're just doing legendary hard, so we beat them down. Um, some of my guys have been trying to get us to just kill the rogue first because I guess he's doing a lot of sneak attack damage, but
He
just
does.
beat them down, and there's waves of trash mobs. We beat them down. Then you fight the Rakshasa, you beat him down, and then you fight the book. So we don't really have a strategy,
It's
Maybe
not a
there's
complicated part. It's
it's
really
not
not. Just kill everything that moves, right?
very
Um,
disappointing.
I kind of developed a kill order slightly, just because. My kill order is the Arenahes first. The reason why I do that is because she disappears, uh, and you get to the end and you're waiting like 4 times for her to come back. So I figure if I put her on the top of the kill list, people go after her first and get through those iterations a little faster, and then they'll have something else to work on while they're waiting for her to come back. Then I do the slot because it's a caster, and then the other two are kind of like whatever. Pick an order. It doesn't. You don't have to separate them. Just kill them. It's not really complicated. They're not the same pairs. They're not the same ones that you get from part two. They're four. They're always the same four. Um, I, I haven't really noticed any one of them to be deadlier than the other. I will say that I have been stabbed in the kidneys by that rogue, and it hurt a lot. The waves of mob, you pretty much just kill them as they come. Be aware that the crowns, the longer they live, the more damage they do. But nothing seems to be lasting long enough for it to be problematic. The Rakshasa is what you'd expect from Rakshasa, other than the fact that he casts Hellball, which
That can be
hurts.
pretty painful.
Yeah,
If you don't have a lot of hit points,
or a lot of MMR.
yeah, you're gonna
It hurts.
you're
You
gonna
usually
die.
see some people die from that. The book has chaotic DR. You need chaotic weapons to bypass it, which is kind of I've seen throw a lot of people for a loop. And you start getting the same waves of mobs. If you need to, put some people on killing or kiting that stuff. I haven't noticed it to be a problem, at least in Legendary Hard in the groups that I've been running. But yeah, I would say that tactically I've had to do a lot for this part.
It's also worth mentioning that, I said all we've done is hard. We actually went in on Elite one time, and like half the party died in the first minute because the blades are just chewing everybody up. And so we were just like, okay, recall out. We're not dealing with this. The blades were just so ridiculous. So I haven't seen deep into the raid on Legendary Elite. So, don't go into Legendary Elite with 700 hit points because you're just going to die in the blades.
I will say that the devs did a good job designing hard to be reasonably doable by a competent group now, and Elite to be a challenge now, and probably still be a challenge 2 years down the road. And I'm okay with that. Legendary Elite is not the way you're going to do this raid every time, probably. If you are, kudos to you. That's impressive. In any case, anything else you want to say about Legendary raids? I know I've kind of been harping on them, like they're not like new; they're old is new kind of thing. But I have been enjoying them a lot. Like it's not like I'm not enjoying them. Just there was some room for some differences in Shroud that would have made it a little more fun. They gave me what I wanted, though. Gotta say that. I gotta be. If I'm gonna critique the Shroud, I gotta say it again and again that I got exactly what I was expecting and wanting out of Legendary Shroud. Just surprised that I wanted a little differences. So
Well, I said my piece on that last week, so I'm just stick to the strategy and just say, I think we
that's fair.
covered some really good points on the new raids.
Yeah, they're enjoyable, a lot of fun. I had 8 in the span of like 2.5 days. I got like 9 shrouds, like 7 spines, and 8 hounds in over the holidays. So
Very nice.
it was a lot, almost a little too much. But then I had like 3 days of work that I couldn't play, so worked out okay. Game news. Let's talk about game news. There's really not a lot of game news. Like I said, it's kind of a slow week. Random loot and crafting, Kenneth crafting, they expect to continue work to improve random loot over the next few patches and updates. Kenneth crafting is being worked on as we speak, and we'll know more about its ETA when they get closer to wrapping up the work, but it's possible it will be update 30 or before. Which I think is their target was update 30 or before. It was kind of... I doubt that they would release a patch just for Kenneth crafting, but they might kind of get to the point where they get the work done with that and do some tweaks to random loot earlier than the update that they're like with gnomes and stuff. So we might see that.
What's the problem here? Because I heard it wasn't working, and last night I went to go try it.
Deconstructing is the big part.
Okay, you can still craft. I was able to disjunct and craft.
Right. You can still craft things, but you can't break the new random loot. You can't break stuff down with.
And they closed the crafting halls just because of that?
I need the crafting. No, they closed the crafting halls because there were issues when it was released, and then they reopened it after the hotfix.
Oh, okay, so they are okay, cool.
As far as I know, they're open. I don't craft a lot, so I don't generally go in there. But no, like you said, random loot needs some tweaks. Kenneth crafting is something they've been saying that they're going to work on after random loot. So random loot came, people were like, "Hey, where's Kenneth crafting?" Like, it's coming. Probably update by update 30. A couple of bugs. Embolden is not working on Implosion, Meteor Swarm, Deconstruct, or Mordenkainen's Disjunction, which will be corrected in the next patch. Also, if you're making a legendary green steel and you're making an Earth, do not expect this benefit to stay as incredibly overpowered as it is now. If you find that something seems overpowered in terms of how much damage it's doing, just a general tip, it probably is. Just be aware of that. Bonus days through today, you get double Mysterious Remnants and double Commendations of Valor. The double Mysterious Remnants it's the chance for the coin to actually drop. It's not double whatever you roll. Just to make... Jerry was talking about changing the name of that because it seems like that's always a confusion point.
Yep.
Store news, through January 14th, you can get 20% off of stat tomes, including +7 if you want +7. 20% off of skill and UMD tomes, tomes of learning, tomes of fate, and the Harper Agent Enhancement Tree. You can also get, and I know Voodoo is really looking forward to these, you can get 5 long-lasting Eagle's Majesty potions with a free code.
I've been waiting all year for it.
You didn't have to wait very long. It's only the 10th day of the year. The 173rd Chronicle, No Koi is putting together a list of where various effects can now appear.
No Cowie, that's my guildie.
Oh, sorry. Hey, like having to pronounce people's character names all the time. Like,
I used to say that because it's my guildie.
Yeah, I used to give. There's a guy in my last guild that I gave all sorts of crap about it because if you know my naming convention, like it's mostly like biblical names. So. But he could never pronounce anything. And when I started running it with him before I joined the guild, like my monk character, like within like 3 raids, like I just became monk guy, like the monk guy. He pretty much just refused to try and pronounce my names. And I feel his pain after like trying to pronounce a lot of players' names. So if I ever mispronounce your name, I apologize.
Hey, if you're ever looking for a guest on your show to talk about assassins,
keep that in mind.
Let him know he's a really good assassin. He's got his DDO assassin channel too.
Bonnie Bew sang a festival carol. She wants cookies from the jester. Great job. A lot of fun. High Lords of Malkir are doing teaching raids. Did Titan last week. I assume you had fun and success.
It was awesome. We had a full house. It was so great. We had like 4 first-timers, like 4 more people that like had never completed or were still learning. And we're doing Legendary Hound of Xoriat next Saturday. We're gonna do Heroic and Legendary, so it's gonna be a good time.
It'd be interesting to compare them in today's world. I've always liked the thing that's always fun about Hound of Xoriat is it scales really well. Like it doesn't matter how powerful character you bring in there. It's all about how well can you buff the dogs. Now, anyways, now that you can't ruin her anymore. See. Cavalry di Draghi. This is an Italian language guild, which is why I can't pronounce it, because I know 2 words in Italian, maybe. And they're on Kyber. They're looking for more players. I run into them a lot. They're level 123 guild, have dozens of accounts, and are looking for more people who speak Italian to join them. So if you're an Italian player, great place. Or if you want to learn Italian, so if you want to learn a language and you like playing games, if you can find a guild that speaks that language, good way to do it. You might have to, ask for what stuff means, and get some translation sometimes, but it's a neat trick if you want to learn a language. The comment for the week: what happens when you combine Enchanted Galandra Distillate with a Potion of Wonder? What happens, Voodoo?
I'll tell you exactly what happens. First, you roll a d20 to determine what plane you end up on after the explosion, and then you roll a d10 to see how many pieces of your loot didn't make the trip with you.
I was just going to say you get a really bad hangover in the morning.
Where's the fun in that,
I can't come up with a great one every week. Our last show got a shout out in the fan site news for looking at 2015, and I saw that Vargul chimed in, loving the end of year shows. Damsel DDO organized a wolf pack, which I participated in and was crazy. I'll say this about it: if you want to see a ton of wolves running through the subterranean, this is the show for you.
I watched that; it was so funny.
If you want to see how not to run a Vision of Destruction, watch the second half of this
You
video.
guys need some work on Hound of Xoriat, too.
Hey, we got Hound of Xoriat done. I don't know what you're talking about. It was not the most strategy, and there were people who forgot to bring curse bots to Vision of Destruction.
Oh, my God.
It was late, and I was distracted by other things. Yeah.
Maybe you guys should come to our teaching raid this weekend. Or some of those people. Bonnie View, come to my teaching raid.
This is like, people actually know how to play the game. I mean, I know Drac was new to the raids. Pretty much everyone else has no excuse for not bringing curse bots to Vision of Destruction. We got it done, though,
There's
barely.
no excuse
by
to
the
not
skin
have
of our
curse
teeth.
bots with you at all times. Everybody, I'm talking to you at all times.
It's a fair assessment. Although I don't think when we started I actually had cash to buy anything because I rolled an Iconic specifically for that. But anyways, we won. Yeah, I think we're down literally to our last person on Vision Destruction and pulled it out. It's hilarious though. DDO Players News talks tabletop and more on their 66th episode. DDO Gamer grades the executive producer. He kind of took the producer's letter from last year around this time and what got accomplished that was out of it. He came up with about 4.5 out of 5 stars for what he said he was going to do, which is pretty good compared to where we've been at times for DDO. Actually, it's really good compared to where we've been a few times.
Can't wait to see the new producer letter. That should be this week, I'm thinking.
It's got to be soon if it's coming.
Yeah.
If it doesn't come this week, maybe I'll ping several in and say, hey, you want to do a DDOcast producer? Yeah. Anyways, Shoemaker cobbles a wizard. He's doing a Twitch show where he cobbles different builds, plays them a little bit. MD Interactive put together a list of recent videos. Adrike pondered faraway sites in a new blog post. The festival coins have stopped dropping. I believe you have through today or tomorrow to turn them in. So if you have not turned in your coins, go turn them in. Let's see. Also, Codex War is underway. If you still need to look at the release notes. Here it is. The festival gesture is through January 11th. So that would be Monday. So get those coins turned in. Videos this week. We'll link to MD Interactive's DDO videos. The Wolfpack, of course. Damsels had their 31st episode, which I believe was the one where I was a guest on. And tried to give them as much grief as I could. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, ladies. Let's see. DDO Players News interviewed Loot Crate, which is a new... actually, that's not right. It's Dungeon Crate, I think, is what it's called. It's like some of the other... Like, you pay a subscription, they send you a box of goodies, but it's kind of specific to RPG folks. So... They interviewed Dungeon Crate. It's kind of a neat interview. It's the start. It haven't actually launched yet, but they're launching soon. You can also hear that within their 66th episode. Axel did a DDO retrospective part 1. What he did is he went back to when he started playing, which was right around just before House Cannith came out. and kind of looked at the updates and what they meant back then, and kind of how they've lasted throughout the years. Let's see. The character planner has been updated, so we'll link to that. Excuse me, in the show notes. It's been updated for update 29. DDO Gamer also had a blog post on managing UI layouts, in addition to the producer's letter commentary from last year, and also he's looking get your what he's calling his gamey nominations in soon. He's kind of doing an awards season thing for DDO. In other news, in honor of the 10th year celebration, Turbine is doing a quote thing. They were really vague on this, but what they want is, as part of the 10th anniversary celebration around Update 30, they want you to answer the following question in 150 characters or less. What advice or comment would your character like to tell the world of Dungeons & Dragons online in-game? So it's supposed to be in character. So they're looking for that. It needs to be an in-game tip, advice, or comment. So while it can be a bit flexible, try not to break the, quote, fourth wall. So we'll link to that blog post so you can do that. Other stuff coming up. You mentioned High Lord's teaching raids. We're doing Hound of Xoriat, Legendary, and Heroic. That is Saturday at, 9 Eastern?
9 p.m. Eastern, yep.
Also, I believe it starts today. On Sundays at midnight, from Kenneth, there's going to be the fan service experiment. The Damsels of DDO and Bonnie and Drac and probably someone else, they're going to be testing their fan service experiment, which is heavy role-playing, light permadeath. I'm sure it's going to be hilarious. And so you can check that out. In about a month or so, they're going to open it up for other folks to join as well. And then in general gaming news, MMORPG is doing a series on test of time, so looking at games and how they've aged. And I believe that the first one was DDO this week. So it's like a 2-week thing, so we'll probably be talking about this next week. But they looked at DDO and how it kind of developed and aged and launched. So it's kind of an interesting series, and it was a fair take on how it happened, and kind of a fun, nostalgic look back. So if you're interested in that, take a look. As far as, Lightning Post, Fuzzy Duck commented, had a lot of stuff that he commented on, so I'll kind of skim through some of it. He did mention that he didn't feel like the leveling takes that much for 29 to 30, but kind of the earlier part did a little bit. As far as the new loot system, he said there's still a bunch of bugs to sort out. He likes it overall. He generally agreed with me, where it's, like I said, it's a good first step. I think was what I kept saying. He definitely agreed about stat augments. He liked the idea of having them single scaling augments based on minimum level, which would be really cool. Which I agree, it'd be a lot less augments too. He said Temple of Elemental Evil was his favorite quest for the year. He loves warlocks, and liked the Ranger Pass and how he loves how it's made proper archers a thing, and he loves the completion runes. And he'd say, on the question of gnomes or tiefling, he settled on tieflings. How have you liked the rune system so far? Have you been playing with it very much?
The rune system?
Instead of 20th completions for the legendary raids, you get the Codex or Xoriat runes.
I do like it. I will say that there was something special about getting that 20th completion and having a special reward there. So it'd still be pretty cool if they added something like that. But I think this solves the problem of people wanting their raid timers to not reset after TR.
Yeah, it was my favorite thing from last year, like I said last time. Just from the potential and it's such a great solution to all the problems that we've had with it. And so I'm really looking forward to the raiding scene coming in the future. Our survey question for the week. Mari from Solona asked, is there a DDO etiquette? And I'll throw this to Voodoo.
Oh man, I wanted to hear how you answered this first.
I know you did.
I mean, etiquette, that's a pretty broad topic, Just remember you're dealing with real people, to be respectful, and, keep the drama out of the game. Remember that people want to just have fun and play a game and not deal with the BS of the real world. It's escapism. We don't want to deal with garbage in the game.
Yeah, I would say the places where you're gonna run into etiquette, like it's people. You're gonna get along with some people. You're not gonna get along with other people, and it's just personalities. It's fine. There's nothing wrong. Don't get a wedgie out of it. It happens. There's people you don't like playing with. That's fine. As far as etiquette, I'd say there's kind of two areas where you're really going to find that etiquette might bite you in the rear. The first is if you're new to something and you don't say anything and you do something wrong, whether or not you knew that it was wrong. And it's going to be particularly a thing in raids. But if you ever do the wrong thing that totally derails what the party's trying to do, that's going to run you into problems. And not knowing is not going to keep you safe from that. If you say you're new to something and you don't know what's going on, and you do something wrong, usually in my experience, it'll come like, we forgot to tell you that. That's on us. And that's the way it probably should be. But if you don't say anything and you go in there and you totally hose a raid and something happens that everyone has to start over, and you can say outside, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was my first time, you're not getting any grace because you didn't say anything. And look, I get that there's going to be people that aren't going to want to run with you if you say it's your first time. I get that. But I think that's kind of the first place where you're going to run into, to quote, you didn't follow etiquette, is not being new and doing something that you shouldn't have and not having been upfront about it.
It's great advice.
The other thing is loot. And everyone's going to tell you it's your loot. It's yours to do with what you want. What they really mean is there's a few things you shouldn't do because it's going to piss people off. Even though it's going to be your loot, and they'll still say it's your loot, do whatever you want, they're still not going to like it, and they may not run with you, and you have, quote, broken the etiquette. Mostly what that's going to be involved with is if you're not going to take something out of a chest and it's going to be bound, rolling it off is the pretty much hands down that's the safe thing to do. That's what everyone kind of expects you to do. Auctioning something off is generally frowned upon. Everyone's still going to say it's your loot, do whatever you want with you, what you want to do with it, and they're never going to run with you again.
Yeah, I would never, ever run with somebody who tried to sell loot in a raid.
So, yeah, and again, raiding is where you're going to see this more often than not. And that's where most of the bound to character stuff is anyways. So it's going to come up there more. But if you get something bound to character, you're not going to use it, you don't want it, put it up for roll. Don't sell it, don't, or give it to a guildie. That's totally fine. Like, I've been on both ends of it. I've never, I don't actually, I haven't liked saying that, I just went to someone else's guildie because I wanted a chance on it and I participated in the raid, but I get it, right? So give it away to a guildie or a friend, that's cool. Roll it off, that's cool. Abide by the rules of the roll that you set, though. Don't roll it off and then my guildie wanted it, here you go. Like, once you put it up for roll, it's up for roll. Don't take that back. And if you win the roll, it's totally fine if you win the roll and you realize, oh, wait, I didn't actually want that. Give it to the next person. As long as that person's still in the raid, you're probably going to be fine. If everyone's left, you're the last person, they'll probably give you some flack. But if you win the roll, don't then turn around and sell it to somebody else in the raid because you won it. It's yours. If they're going to buy it, they should get it off the other person. But auctioning stuff off for raid just turns people off. It just does.
Big time.
So that's kind of where I would say the etiquette's going to be. What you do with your loot and doing something wrong, even though you didn't know it was the wrong thing to do, but you didn't tell anyone. That's kind of the etiquette things that I see happen more often than not. Other stuff is just interpersonal relationships. It's not an etiquette thing. So with that, we'll close out the show. Anything you want to plug before we head out here?
The Voodoo Warlock series is still ongoing. It's winding down. I got about 5 episodes left. I'm getting to the high-end stuff, doing some really cool things with a pure Warlock, Drow, and Light and Spirit tank. It's been a lot of fun.
you do a lot of other videos too. You've got on your YouTube channel, you've got some raid tactics, like raid teaching videos, a lot of fun stuff. Your druid tank, a lot of different things in there. So
Over
check that out.
250 videos.
That's a lot. I'm just gonna say, that's a lot of videos. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for Voodoo for joining me today. And
Hell
thanks
yeah.
for listening. And big. I say this every time, but a big thanks to all the people that are contributing to DDOCast. Whether you're listening to the show, telling other people about the show, and of course a big thanks to the guests that come on the show and help me not talk to myself. I think everyone enjoys it a lot more when I'm not talking to myself. I enjoy it a lot more when I'm not talking to myself. And thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making DDO happen. We really enjoy the game. Thanks to Cybers as well for hosting the podcast. It's a big help to us for them to host it like they do. Hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag. I'm going to show off what I've been drinking out of because I got one for myself. We have DDOcast mugs. There's shirts, all sorts of stuff. I generally wear that stuff on the show, as you can see it, but that's where you can get it. You go to our website, you can find stuff there. If you have trouble finding it, let me know. I'm not doing it for money at all. But I know people like this stuff, so it's available. And Sig and Ann did a great job setting all this stuff up. So I'll give it a little bit of a heartier of a plug today than I usually do. Again, it's not about getting money. But if you'd like to give DDOcast money, which I then use for prizes and stuff, and to kind of cover what very little costs there are for the show, you can go to DDOcast.com. DDOcast.com. There's a way to give on the website. You can also do that. So if you have some money, you want to see bigger, cool prizes on the show. I love giving stuff away. My pocket is not big enough to do that big all the time. But that if you remember our scavenger hunt last year, the reason why I was able to do that is a couple people have been giving over time. I let that build up, had a big thing. So that's kind of how that happens. If you want to see some of that stuff, I need people to be generous. But if you don't feel any pressure to do that, again, I'm not taking a paycheck out of this or anything like that. It's just to do fun stuff for the show. With that, if you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to ask us, or a topic you'd like us to debate, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment. Anywhere you can leave a comment. You can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media, Twitter at ddocast, and follow us for latest cast updates in that way. Our closing tip for the week this week comes from Fuzzy Duck 81 on Thalanis. He says, look on the forums for build ideas, but experiment with making your own. You'll know it better that way and know all the little tricks to maximizing their capabilities. So with that, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to try the new legendary raids.